everybody, and welcome to Project Life Weekly. We are going to dive into all of my January stories in my Project Life album for 2025. The very first one we are going to tackle is a really fun one that I've done a couple times over the last several years, and this is the fun New Year memes that float around. And they were really funny in 2020 and like 2021. And I think I even did this in 2022. Maybe it was 2021 and 2022, and then I didn't do one, I don't think, last year, and then this year I decided to do it. So you always see those really funny memes floating around at the beginning of the year that's like, the New Year memes. And I'm a big believer that in your Project Life album should be more than just photos. It should be a reflection of your life. That's my goal in my Project Life album. And I guess I shouldn't say should, because your Project Life album should be whatever you want it to be. I will say that my Project Life album, I like it to be a reflection of our life. And I love bringing in voices from my home, like my husband and my kids. I love having those reflected in my album. And then I also love having the things reflected that we actually do, which we all scroll social media. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're seeing them, we're laughing at things. I don't know about you, but with my friends and my husband, I'm constantly sending reels back and forth and memes back and forth that say, this made me think of you. Or I'll send things to Kayla that are like things that have to do with like penguins or Snoopy, and I'll say, I'm thinking of you. And so I like to bring that into my album. And so what I've done is I have printed out all of the ones that I had saved. And a couple of them, like this one that is a photo, it cut off the saying at the bottom, so I'll have to write that. And then there's this one that is going to have to be a smaller one, a 4x4, because of the way that the text, like sometimes you have to get a little bit creative with the way that you print these out, and I definitely did that. So I made this one smaller, and then all the other ones are going to be 3x4, and I actually just printed them. And then I added a little bit of journaling because I had a little bit of space, like the way that they fit. So I added a little bit of journaling and just my thought about it. And then I'm going to do it on this page protector that is a design A, and then it is cut in half. So it's a 6x12. And I will do it in that page protector, and it will be sort of at the beginning of my Project Life album. And so this is a perfect example of the like memes, the funny things that float around. It says leaving 2019, and then it says entering 2025. And so I did have to trim this one down quite a bit, but I wanted it to fit on the top card, and I wanted that purple to fit. So for January, if you missed my setup for January, I am using old core kits this year again. So the older style core kits, and the core kit I picked for January is the Aqua and the Happy core kit. So those are both fairly old. I think they're one of the first kits that came out, and like the first round of kits that came out, and they're very similar, and they're like a rainbow color, red, yellow, pinks, purples, and it's just very happy colors. And so that's what I picked for January. So I am running a little bit behind the last 2 weeks. Violet got very sick last week. There's been a little bit of that winter flu and colds kind of floating around our house for a little while. Andrew had it, and then Kayla had a touch of it, and then Violet was getting a touch of it at the beginning of last week, and I didn't think it would be too bad, and it ended up settling in her chest. Sorry about that. My kid was calling me from school. So it settled in her chest, and she got very sick. And then in the middle of all of it, she had an allergic reaction. She's allergic to citrus, and she had been drinking lemonade, but because she was sick and she was drinking more of it, she had a really bad allergic reaction to it. And she ended up breaking out in hives. And so it was pretty miserable last week. She's our middle child. She's autistic. And so she does not understand when these things happen. She kept saying to me last week, I didn't ask for any of this to happen to me. So it was a very long week. On Thursday, I really thought she might need to go to the ER. And she ended up not. We didn't have to take her to urgent care. The medicine started working, but even getting her to take medicine is just a very exhausting experience. And so, and then by the end of the week, I was starting to feel like I was getting sick, but thank goodness nothing settled in. But it was a very long week. She was sick through the weekend. She did end up going back to school on Monday, and then we had to kind of get our house back together and back, from being sick and people being displaced and the whole thing. So I am running a little bit behind. It's not really how I wanted my February to start, but that's what happens when you have kids in school and it's flu season. So I am getting back on track. Today is the first day that I feel kind of normal and like things are, back to normal. And then we have a very busy weekend coming up. So, just all the things with life. So I'm diving into January and getting January all together. I actually am fairly caught up on this project. I did pop in to my office last week in between different things, and I'm just in a very creative space of wanting to be in my album and putting things together and figuring things out, and it's just been a really fantastic place to be with my memory keeping right now. I just am feeling very, very creative. So what I'm doing here is this is a tag, and it's from my Ali Edward tag die cuts that I just have in a bin. And I think next week you're going to see me organize all of these because I am loving using them. You see this one is perfect. I added a little bit of twine. I actually think that is embroidery floss. If you are wanting something that is like baker's twine, but I know baker's twine can be really expensive, particularly, if you're wanting to get a lot of different colors, it can be pretty expensive. And so what I did a couple years ago is I bought a embroidery thread pack, and you get 100,000 different colors, and it's pretty inexpensive. And then I wrapped them around old style clothespins, and I just have them in with my baker's twine. That's also how I store my baker's twine, and they work really great. And I brought this yellow in for the top of the tag, and then I think next week I will be organizing those die cuts from Ali Edwards that I have, like the tags and things. I want to be able to use them more because they are perfect. They also work really great in the Scrappy Spiral notebook, the new notebook that I do some projects in, and then also my Everyday Snapshot 5x7 little notebook that I've been doing. They work great in that too, so I really want to be able to use them. So stay tuned for that for next week. So this is how I'm starting this insert. So it is the memes, and I thought that was a great one to start out with. And then, like I said, the rest of these I did on the computer. I added them to a Pages and to a 3x4 box, and then some of them I had to do smaller than a 3x4, like it didn't fill the entire 3x4 box. And so I added a little bit of journaling. So like that one right there has a little bit of journaling on the bottom. So you see the meme part is on the top, and then on the bottom is a little bit of journaling that I added just about a few of these different ones. There's one of Ben Affleck, and I always love his fed up with life looks that he gets caught doing, and there was a whole bunch of them. And then it was like all of us feeling about 2025, like all the things that have already happened. It seems like 2025 has come in, the gate swinging. And so it was just, these are just funny. And I also think it's just a reflective piece of our culture. It just really, in 20 years, maybe these won't even be a thing. Like maybe this will not even be a thing that is going on, and you'll look back in these albums and see this, and it will be fun. So for the core kits that I'm using, they are rounded corners. So the older core kits have rounded corners, and I like rounded corners, but I just want everything to match. So if I'm going to have rounded corners, then I would like everything to be rounded. If I'm gonna have square corners, then I want everything to be square. So for the older core kits, I do have to trim them down. And this one I am just using as the color. I want to add some color to this. And then I will add the colored card to a white, because now it's smaller. It's a little bit smaller. And so I will add that to a white 3x4 card. And that way, has a little bit of color, but it'll fit in the pocket. So then there was a few on Instagram that I just printed out, and it was like, this one says, hi, I'd like to cancel my subscription to 2025. I've experienced the 7-day trial, and I'm definitely not interested. So I thought that was cute. And then there's one that says, my new year starts in February because January has some stuff happening, but it has a bad word. And then this one right here, the bottom of this was supposed to say, the bottom said the amount of sage needed for 2025, but it got cut off when I printed it out. So I was going to take one of my slick writers, and you can see I'm going through my slick writers, and there's a whole bunch of them that are dried up. So I'm going to get rid of those because there's no point in having those around if they're dried up. So I was going to take, I take a slick writer and I write that sentiment on the photo. It ends up just being in black because that's the only one that I had. Well, the paper that I'm using for this photo is my photo paper that I print at home, and it just has a weird texture, and my handwriting came out really crappy. And then I wrote right over a dark spot on the photo, so then it was hard to see, and I just didn't like it. Now later on I will take a label, because at first I was just thinking, you know what, it's just fine. Everything doesn't have to be perfect, right? And that is true. Everything in these albums do not have to be perfect. And it was fine. I could have just left it. It will end up bothering me enough that later I will put a label over it. And then what that will lead me to doing is using the label for other photos in my album, and it will tie it all together. And so sometimes, and you know, something that doesn't turn out great, and then you change it, you know, or you, you know, fix it somehow, or you alter it, or you just take a moment and do something different, it can lead to something else creative in your album. So you never know what's going to work or how things are going to work until you try it. And it's just paper, and it's just ink, and it's just die cuts, and you can always change it. And probably the only thing that is probably a little bit harder to change if you don't print photos at home is if you cut up a photo or you trim a photo down and then you end up not wanting it like that, you know, you're gonna have to reprint. Now I print from home, so it's a little bit easy for me to do that. I don't mind doing it so much, but I always say you just have to try it. Just try something out and see how it works, and if you like it. And so there I put the yellow card that I did, I put it on the back of one I had already cut out. Now, because it tends to be that pocket, that first pocket, on at least on the Becky Higgins page protectors, are slightly smaller than a 3x4. And so I had to trim that up a little bit, and it made my card a little bit off. But again, it doesn't have to be perfect. I needed the card to fit into that pocket. And so I trimmed it down a little bit, and then it worked out just fine. So I'm not frozen here. Your video didn't freeze. I am probably talking to somebody. That was a lot of what happened last week when I was in here doing stuff. Kids would pop in, or I would have to stop and tell somebody where medicine was, or, you know, the whole thing. So the front and the back of this will be those memes. Here you can see there's another one right there where I did the journaling on top. It's fit into the very bottom part of the 3x4 square that I had made, and then I just added a little bit of journaling. And the journaling is nothing exciting or insightful, or it just is like why I thought it was funny, or you know, sometimes I added a little detail of some things happening in January that made me feel this way. Definitely the kids being sick has not been fun. I feel like we kind of started getting this sickness right after Christmas. Well, right when we went back to school, right? Everybody's going back to school and nobody's immune system is probably great because we've all been eating all the sugar and all of the fun over Christmas, and then the kids always tend to like get a little touch of it. I had been pretty worried about Kayla because she had a big performance this last weekend for drama, and I kept thinking if she gets sick, she is going to be devastated because she has a fairly big role at one of the drama festivals that they go to every February. And thankfully, she did well holding it off. So yeah, I just added a little, a couple little details as to why I thought they were funny. Now here's the card that I'm like, I just don't like the way that looks. I just don't like the way the writing is or how it goes over that dark spot. And I'm going to look in my die cuts and my stickers and try to find something. I have like tag stickers or die cuts, and I have these black ones right here. They have a black border and then a little bit of white space, and I thought, you know what, I could use that, and then I could try to use the rest of this sheet in January. And a great way to add a design element to your layout, any layout that you have, but really with Project Life where you have multiple, maybe you have multiple layouts for January, is to use the same item throughout. Like for me, throughout January, I will use these label stickers, and then that's going to tie things together. They also have the outline of them has a black border, and so like that tag that says 0125 is black and white, and so it's going to tie in to those labels. Now you see the label wasn't exactly long enough to cover up all of my writing, so that just gives me another moment to add something. So I had these heart stickers, and they are pretty much the same colors that my January is in, like this rainbow style color. And so I thought, well, I'll add a little heart to the end of this. So then I will also be using those heart stickers throughout January to again tie everything together. Now, at first I was feeling a little bit disappointed with like, oh, I'm going to use these hearts, but in February I'm going to want to use hearts. And then I was like, oh my word, like now January is going to have hearts and then February is going to have hearts, and that's too many hearts. And then I thought, no, it's not. It's my album. If I want to use hearts every single layout, every single month, that's okay. If I like that, then that's okay. And that is something that I'm really trying to remember this year, is that there are no rules for your memory keeping albums. If you like hearts or you like stars, or I really like circles and I tend to use circles on a lot of things, I tend to see different embellishments or things that I like, and I tend to purchase, multiple packs of them. If I like the labels or I like the heart stickers, I'll often pick up 1 or 2 packs. And then I will not use them and think, well, it's too much, or I shouldn't do this, or what if somebody doesn't like this, and then I just realize I can use the ones that I want to use, and it doesn't matter if 2 months in a row has hearts or not. So I will use the rainbows here. I've not set up February yet, so I don't know what I will be using in February, and so I may not end up using hearts in February. I will more than likely be about a month behind when I'm sharing Project Life Weekly with you. That's my goal, is to the following month wrap up the month that was before. So we're in February and I'm wanting to wrap up January, and I just about have it done. I have 1 insert left that I need to do, and the only thing that's holding me up is I need to print some articles. And that's always where I get hung up, is if there's something outside of my photos that I need to print, like I need to go search for, it always hangs me up. I procrastinate doing it. And this layout that I have left to do for January is a pretty important one, and I really want the articles. So I will just need to dive in and find those and get those printed. So again, I'm just doing the same thing. I'm trimming up my memes, and then I will put them, I trimmed them in 3x4, and then I put them in the pockets. Here's that one with Ben Affleck. I don't know why Ben Affleck's moods, like when he gets photographed. I'm not a big celebrity person, but I do find these funny. Like, I will seek out the Ben Affleck moods because I just think they're funny. And then these last couple, I'm just attaching, I'm attaching this one to the 4x6 photo, and then the top one I attached to the 4x6 card that I had made. This one was a cat one that was so funny. Kayla sent me that one actually, so it was fun that I added that to there. And then that's the Ben Affleck one. And I did put on the Ben Affleck one that I just thought it was funny. So here is my first insert. It is the 2025 funny memes. And I really like the way it came out. I added a purple heart to the top of that one on the other side, and then a pink heart to that one, just to tie in some of those hearts. I had decided to go ahead and just use those. And I like the way it came out. There's a few other things that I've done to my main photos, and then you can see that I have my sticky notes on my other inserts, and then those labels I will start using throughout my album. I will use them on my everyday photos, and then those hearts, I pulled those out and I left those with January, and then you'll see those make an appearance. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you are enjoying Project Life Weekly, and I will catch you in my next video. Thank you so much for checking out my video. Here on the screen are 2 other videos that you can check out if you would like. If you're a member watching this video and you've missed any of the member videos, or you're new, you can go back and watch older member videos if you would like. Thank you so much for checking out my video, and I will catch you in my very next project.